It's a really unique organization where we're not a nonprofit. There's really nothing in it for us except for just bringing cool things to Buffalo. So we can't get tax deductible money. These are just really passionate, good people who are trying to bring really interesting things. There was a project, I think it was in Pittsburgh, and they were trying to make a zip line through their city. I would love to see something like that.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whenever you may be listening, and welcome to Latitude, the 43 North podcast. I'm your host, Nate Benson, Director of Media and Public Relations here at 43 North, and we have a great episode this week with Jess Trace. She's a content director at SunCare, a 43 North winner, but we're not here to talk about SunCare too much. We're talking about making Buffalo awesome again. What do we mean by that? Well, Jess is part of Awesome Buffalo. It's a micro-grant foundation, part of a larger platform of microgrants across the world. And they focus on social good projects for the city of Buffalo. So I'm not going to waste another minute setting this up, and I'm going to get right to this week's episode with Jess Trace from Awesome Buffalo. Jess, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. So for those who don't know you, why don't you give us a quick rundown of who you are, what you do?
Sure. I'm Jess Trace. I'm head of content at SunCare here at 43 North. So we have a UV detection sticker that tells you how much sunscreen you need and when to reapply.
And you just got back from Australia.
I did, yes.
That was your first big kind of trip for SunCare, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we just launched our product in Australia where skin cancer is the highest in the world.
Yeah.
So
sun's beating down a little hard on the Australians.
Yeah, especially right now in their summer.
So what was the experience like of launching a product down in Australia? You're not here to talk about SunCare, but since you mentioned it, I wanted to let the listeners know what you do there. Yeah,
so it was really, it's similar to America in a lot of ways, but different too. They have their own culture. And so it was fun to experience that and get used to working with people there and just understanding their issues and how they're different from ours here in America. Obviously, everybody has to worry about the sun, but they do 10 times more than we do. So it was great to just experience that culture and their problems and how we can help solve them.
How did you end up at SunCare? What were you doing before that?
I was working for a startup in Rochester. I worked there for 8 years. I was the first employee there. And after 8 years, I decided it was time to do something different. And I went freelance for a little while. And that was really fun, but I missed the world of startup community. Sure. And so I connected with SunCare because they were actually looking for a freelance person at first. And then they said, well, after I met with them a few times, they said, well, actually, we could use somebody full time. Would you be interested? So I said, absolutely. And here I am 6 months later. Yeah.
But so you're here to talk about Awesome Buffalo.
Yep.
What is Awesome Buffalo?
Awesome Buffalo is just a group of Buffalo's neighbors who give money out of our own pockets to fund awesome projects happening in the community. So we give $1,000 grants bi-monthly right now. We're aiming for monthly in the future, but bi-monthly right now we give $1,000 grants to projects happening not necessarily to businesses, but usually to individuals or organizations who can't find money elsewhere to fund their projects. So we kind of look for the obscure things that people are trying to do that maybe they're looking for a little extra cash and can't find it, and so we give them that.
Now, I guess Awesome, for lack of a better term, is part of a larger organization nationwide and actually around the world, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So the Awesome Foundation is in, I think, 16 countries. There's 89 chapters currently and constantly adding new chapters. We actually got together in Washington, D.C. this year in Chicago and met up, but each chapter runs autonomously. And so in Buffalo, we decide our own rules. We decide how we want to give grants. We decide everything for ourselves.
How did you initially get involved?
So they call them deans. It's basically the head of the chapter. So I'm co-dean with my friend Kelly. Kelly won an Awesome Foundation grant when she lived in Canada. And then when she and her husband moved to Buffalo, she saw that we didn't have something like this here, but saw that this was a good place to foster that community of awesome. And so she thought that we needed a chapter, and we were talking about it, and we just decided to bring it here. So Kelly and I brought it to Buffalo, and our first year we decided to have 20 trustees. Last year we moved to 10. This year we moved to 10. And that's been a good model for us to have our core group of 10 people that gets to decide how we want to give our money away.
So how does the process work? How does like applying for that? Like what kind of projects are you looking for? Are you constantly, you said you had 10 trustees now, like is the funding of it ever an issue as well? Like how's the whole thing work?
Yeah, so each trustee gives a set amount of money for the year. And we are looking next year, we've never taken outside money besides just money from our own trustees. Next year, we're looking to possibly do some donations. They won't be tax-deductible donations because we're not an established nonprofit. So we're just going to be looking for people who want to give money to cool things happening, and maybe don't necessarily have the time to commit to help us out with that, but want to just give money. Because we've had a lot of people who say, I have the time but not the money, or I have the money and not the time.
Sure.
So we're looking for people who next year just want to donate some money to the project, want to get behind this thing that's happening here with all the cool projects that are going on in the community. And we're also going to each give a little bit more next year. Each of our trustees is going to give a little bit more money so that we can fund one seat for somebody who doesn't necessarily have the money but wants to give time to the project. So we're trying both things next year as something different, but right now it's just come from our trustees. And then the projects that we're looking for are really just, like I said, projects that are looking to do something different but can't usually find funding for something like that. So one of our first projects was Rainbows on Allen. It's probably the most recognized project that we've funded so far because it's so public. So the rainbows that are painted on the corner of Allen and Elmwood, it's surprising to people probably that they couldn't find funding, but the Allentown Association and the Pride Center of Western New York had been trying to do this project for a long time and just couldn't get the funding or the backing for it.
Really?
Yeah, and so they brought it to us. Seth Amon, who is an Allentown Association board member, brought it to us and pitched it, and we were surprised by that too, but they couldn't find the backing. So they wanted to bring that sense of inclusiveness and acceptance to Allentown, and they're looking to actually paint more rainbows, but that was the first one that we funded where we felt like this is something that we had no idea couldn't get money. And so we were happy to be able to do that. So
it doesn't seem like a project that required a lot of capital either.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and those are the projects we're looking for too. So we're not looking to fund a startup that's trying to not do something like 43 North does, where we're not giving people $500,000 or $1 million. We're just giving them $1,000 to do something cool. So it doesn't. I think the Rochester chapter, they just started, and I've been connecting with the Rochester chapter a little bit to help them get going. And they just funded a project where a guy was creating basically like some little space. It was something, he was a space engineer, and he was trying to create this little satellite type thing to like get people excited about space again, and just something interesting. So it was just this guy who, had an idea for a project that he was like, this could be pretty cool and could bring a lot of awareness and get people together and that sort of thing. So we're kind of looking for individuals who are doing cool things that somehow help Buffalo. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that typical social good stuff that we're all used to. Like, community gardens and things like that are wonderful, but they're getting funding from other places. So we're looking for those things that maybe just can't, like just a cool idea that brings Buffalo together in some way that can't get money from anybody else.
For the out-of-town listeners who aren't familiar with Buffalo, describe what the Rainbows on Allen project actually is.
Yeah, sure. So they painted rainbows on the sidewalk of that intersection at Allentown, at Allen and Elmwood, and they are just a really visible. It's a highly populated intersection, and so it's a really visible symbol of inclusiveness in Allentown, and showing that Allentown is an area that is accepting of all kinds of people. So that was the idea of that project.
Allentown historically, the kind of a cultural epicenter, so to speak, of Buffalo. So obviously something like that is well needed.
Yeah.
So what are some of the other projects that people in Buffalo can kind of credit Awesome Buffalo for helping get off the ground and accomplished.
One thing we're really excited about that we funded this year is called Buffalo Little Pantries. So if you've ever heard of those little libraries that people have everywhere where you leave a book or take a book, it's a local musician and artist, Drea Denur, who she started Feed Buffalo, I believe it's called. And part of this initiative is to create little pantries instead of little libraries in 25 different locations across Buffalo so that people can leave things like toiletries or like toothpaste or things that they don't necessarily have access to. People can donate. Anybody can donate items and leave them in the pantry, and then people who need them can come take them. So we're really excited about that one because it's just a cool thing that provides something really good for Buffalo, and also is just a unique idea that nobody, is really doing too often. Let's see, what else do we do this year? Trash Can Be Beautiful is our most recent project that we funded. It's in the Masson district. There's local kids who are upcycling metal barrels and turning them into artwork and putting them in areas where there's a lot of litter and trash, and just trying to, it creates a really cool project for these local kids to show their artistic abilities, and then also to promote cleanliness and the idea of you don't need to litter, you can put it in these beautiful trash cans. And so just kind of bringing that really visual, the highly visual trash can to these areas that need it the most. So it's just it's a cool collaborative project that kind of meets a couple different purposes.
How many people are coming to you guys for funding in your project on kind of the monthly basis? Is there a lot of requests, or are you seeking folks out?
We get a lot of requests. A lot of them are those typical social good things, which makes me wonder if there is a need for more funding in Buffalo for those things that, we get a lot of gardens. We get a lot of organizations who are trying to create, maybe not inclusiveness necessarily, but just trying to beautify the city. A lot of murals, a lot of those things that are happening, but it makes me wonder if there's not enough funding for those sorts of things. We get quite a few. I would say probably on average we get maybe 25 to 50 applications every month. And then bi-monthly we can only fund one. So there's a lot of need. And so we're really hoping to try to do more. Most awesome chapters do a monthly grant, so that's really our goal here. But we wanted to start small, and last year we did 4 grants. This year we're doing 6. So we're slowly building it up to hopefully get to 12 within the next few years.
So you have an event coming up in a week or so that the public can get involved in. What is that? Yeah,
so it's a happy hour at Hearth and Press on Main Street on Tuesday night from 5:30 to 7. And it's basically just a time where right before our trustees are going to get there early, and we're going to select our grant winner for this month. So if people want to show up early, they might be able to see that process happening. But at 5:30, we're just going to announce the grant winner. We're going to we want to just have some of our past winners there who can talk about what they've done with the money. Anybody who's interested in applying for a project and might have questions for us or just wants to talk to past winners can come and do that. Anybody who's interested in joining us as a trustee, we do have a few trustee seats open for next year, so we're hoping that anybody who's interested in joining us and helping us select the projects that can make Buffalo more awesome might show up and talk to our trustees and just get a feel for what we do. And then anybody who just wants to come hang out and, see what kind of awesome stuff's going on. We'd love to talk to them about the different projects that we're getting applications for and that we can't necessarily fund. But one of the cool things last year, we did pitch events last year. We didn't do them this year, but at some of those pitch events, there were projects that pitched who we didn't fund, but then ended up getting funding from somewhere else or got recognition from that pitch event. And then found a way to make their project happen. So any way that we can do that is really exciting for us too, because we know there is that need and we can't fulfill all of it. So
why is what you're doing, why are you so passionate about it, and why is it important for Buffalo?
I think that it's just a really unique it's a really unique organization where we're not a nonprofit. There's really nothing in it for us except for just bringing cool things to Buffalo. So we can't get tax deductible money. These are just really passionate, good people who are trying to like bring really interesting things. There was a project, I think it was in Pittsburgh, and they were trying to make a zip line through their city. Like, I would love to see something like that. I mean, not that necessarily, but just something outrageous come to Buffalo that really just makes people happy. I mean, we're in a time where there's so much like turmoil and people are disagreeing about all these different things, and these are just things that can bring some lightness and happiness to the city. So I think that's why it's a really cool thing. It's just completely unique, and it's just passionate people who really want to do good in the city.
So what's the direct need for Awesome Buffalo moving forward?
I think that we could use, we really want to diversify. So just getting the word out there of what we're doing and getting people to understand what we can provide them is really big for us. We've been really working to get people in neighborhoods where we haven't reached yet to learn about us so that they can apply for these grants. And we've been doing better at that, but we definitely know that we could improve, and we're hoping to next year. And then just any additional funding. If people want to just next year, since we are opening it up, if people want to give us $10, toward the next grant and can help us hopefully do more grants next year, even if they can't give us their time, we would love to expand the ability to make more projects happen. So I think we need money. We need just outreach. And the more people that we can reach, the more projects we can fund. So
how can people connect with you guys so they can hopefully donate or get involved?
Sure. So our website is buffalo.awesomefoundation.org. That's where you can apply for a grant. That's where you can see what our past micro grants were. And then we also just something that's surprising for people is that we literally hand over cash to these projects. So we have a Venmo account where I keep all of our money for the year, and then as we fund projects, I just move them over to those people's Venmo accounts. And it's always shocking for people. They're like, is this real? Can I trust this? Because they're not used to that sort of funding, because it's just not conventional. So we have a Venmo account. It's at Awesome Buffalo, and any money that people want to donate can go just right there. So we'll be providing a link to that on our website too for this year.
So back to sun care. What's next for the UV sticker company?
Lots. So we're continuing our Australia launch in a couple of weeks. Is Skin Cancer Action Week in Australia. So we're gearing up for that, and we're going to be on the beach handing out spots and sunscreen to people, providing them on the spot help and giving them
marketing.
Clever. We're going to have a big location marker and show people that these are really high UV areas and you need to be protected. So we're gearing up for that. And we're also working on new products. So we're really excited we're working on some different types of spots and other potential opportunities that I will
save
let
for
everybody,
another day.
Excuse me. I will let everybody wait and see what we're up to.
Now you guys are getting spot actually manufactured here at TapeCon right here in Buffalo too, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we, that was as a result of 43 North. So we were hand making spots prior to this. And then, we came to Buffalo through 43 North and connected with TapeCon. And now we have great manufacturing, and we can produce a lot more spots than we could when we were hand making them.
I just think of, that scene from Happy Gilmore, like my fingers hurt and you guys just trying to make this little sticker. But obviously now with TapeCon involved, you don't have to
do all that. I never had to do it, but I can imagine that it was pretty tedious. Yeah.
I imagine. All right, Jess, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks
and again,
for having
how
me.
can people get involved with Awesome Buffalo?
Go to buffalo.awesomefoundation.org or connect with us. We have Instagram, Facebook at Awesome Buffalo. We'd love to hear from you and hear about your cool ideas. Even if you think they're outrageous, I promise you we will not think they're outrageous. We will probably really love them if you think they're crazy. So, just
And Tuesday, November 13th at 5 p.m. at Hearth and Press on Main Street. It's a little public get-together to announce the new winner, correct?
Yes. Perfect. Thank you. I hope to see everybody there. Grab a slice of pizza and a beer with us and talk about awesome stuff happening in Buffalo.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Cheers. I want to thank Jess for joining me on the podcast this week. If you want to get involved with Awesome Buffalo, head on over to their website, buffalo.awesomefoundation.org, and you can learn all about how to apply for one of their $1,000 micro grants or get involved as a trustee or volunteer. Again, that's November 13th at Hearth and Press on Main Street in downtown Buffalo for their unveiling of the new grant winner. Should be a fantastic night. Head on over again to their website, buffalo.awesomefoundation.org, to get involved. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. Remember to subscribe on whichever platform you use for your podcast. So if that's Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Google Podcasts, Overcast, or whichever app you use, make sure you're subscribing to Latitude, the 43 North podcast, and head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review of this show. The more people who do that, the more people who will hear this show, and that's the goal of what we do here at 43 North. It's about bringing awareness to the startup ecosystem in Western New York. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I'm Nate Benson for 43 North. We'll see you at the next one.